Welcome to the Black Duck Revival Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Wilkins. I'm excited to have you join me as I speak with a fascinating collection of folks, all of whom have in common that they've made a way for themselves by finding an intersection between thoughtful consideration and the tactile work of getting their hands dirty. This is an examination of intention, capability, and craft. It's where philosophy meets the blue-collar work ethic and where I find real value. Hey folks, welcome back to the podcast. This week I'm joined by Jimmy Flatt and Lydia Parker, partners in life and co-founders of Hunters of Color. I'm actually still in Oregon right now, headed to Montana, but I just left Lydia and Jimmy's house. I spent probably a week with Jimmy, probably half of it in California, and then we ended up in the Willamette River Valley of Oregon. We had some phenomenal hunts, just an absolute blast, man. And the hunts were fantastic, but even better than the hunting, if that's even possible, was the conversations we had. We ate some really great meals, and just talked about a bunch of stuff that, I don't get to discuss that much as a father in Little Rock, Arkansas, who is slowly or perhaps rapidly approaching dotage. So we have a really wide-ranging conversation, as is par for the course on this podcast. But I think we had a lot of important topics. We talk about the nonprofit Hunters of Color that Lydia and Jimmy run. We talk about generational differences and approach to common interest. And we talk a little bit about the turkey hunts that Jimmy and I had just finished up when we recorded this. So I hope you guys enjoy this conversation with Lydia Parker and Jimmy Flatt. Hello and welcome back to the podcast, folks. This week I'm joined by Jimmy Flatt and Lydia Parker, both founders and facilitators of greatness over at Hunters of Color, a nonprofit based here in the Willamette River Valley of beautiful Western Oregon. Jimmy and I have been on a journey of sorts, these last 10 days or so, and we've been turkey hunting and having a really good time doing it. First in California and then up in Oregon. We've done a mix of public and private land birds, lots of different methods, but I think if you count the bird that Jimmy got the 2 days before, a couple days before I got to California, we've done 9 birds in Oregon and California, and it's been a fantastic time. So I thought that what we might do on this podcast is maybe I'll tell a little turkey hunting story, or Jimmy or I both will tell, maybe one of our favorite memories from this last trip, because it's been so fun. And then we can talk a little bit more about Hunters of Color and what these folks are doing over here professionally. And we'll talk about some generational stuff, I'm sure. And anyway, so Jimmy Flatt, thanks for being on the podcast, and thank you so much for making this happen, dude. I feel like I've learned like a lifetime, maybe not a lifetime, but I feel like I got a decade's worth of turkey knowledge by watching you and hunting with you the last week and a half or so.
Well, thanks for pushing me to drive down to California and do this with you. It's been a ton of fun. It's been a good break for me.
I'm happy to push you to do things for me even more, Jimmy, if that's what you're looking for, because we could do a 3-month turkey tour.
I don't know if we'll get approval from
so
Lydia over here.
there's looks coming my way over here. Yeah, man. But so you want to kind of describe, just for folks, a little bit about what we've been doing, and maybe relate a tale.
Yeah. So, I guess this all kind of started last year when you reached out and we became little pen pals, I guess. And I invited you out to come turkey hunting in Oregon, and you went out on a trip with Sitka, and then you came out to Oregon. You're telling me that you're a little scarred from.
Yeah, I was rattled, man. I missed that turkey on that Kansas trip, and I was just like, oh my God, I can't even kill a turkey at 12 yards with a shotgun. Like, what's wrong with me? Yeah, man. So I was definitely looking for some redemption when I came up here.
Yeah. So you met us here in Oregon at our place, and I set up a few properties for us to go and hunt. And I think it was day one. We doubled up on some spring turkeys here in the valley, and then I believe it was day two. We went out with our other co-founder Thomas. Thomas fell asleep sitting on a tree, just cutting logs right next to us. And then we didn't get anything that day. Then the next day, you shot your second bird.
Yeah, man, it was a super fun trip, man. And we got to be like buddies, you, me, and Lydia. Lydia's also here, but still preparing herself to be on the podcast. Yeah, man. And then, so I talked about wanting to do even a bigger deal. And, so we talked about doing California first, where you're from, and then making our way up to Oregon here. And then last year I made a connection for Eastern Oregon, which is where I'm going to be heading off to tomorrow or the next day. So anyway, man, so we ended up meeting back this year. And look.
Tell them about your drive.
Oh, yeah, I'll tell them the drive here in a second. But let's just agree that we're going to talk in the broadest possible terms about, where we've been hunting. We don't need to give away all the trade secrets here. Yeah, but basically I was supposed to get to California a little bit earlier than I did, and just, I'm working and just have a family and stuff. So it ended up that I left at noon on last Tuesday, and I needed to be here. Like, we needed to be going out from your parents' house at 6 a.m. on Thursday. So it was like almost a 30-hour drive, and I had 36 hours to do it. I think is how it worked out. Does that make sense? Maybe. But anyway, so I rolled up, man, but I was sleeping in this van. I'd pull over, get a little shut-eye. It worked out. I pulled up at your parents' house at 5:55 and got my license purchased and changed my clothes and realized I'd been in that van for like 35 out of the last 36 hours, and I smelled like it. And then that started our turkey tour. So, we were archery hunting there in California. We've been using shotguns here in Oregon. But so just of it, what's been kind of like your favorite memory from it, I guess?
Man, there's so many. It's like the whole trip has been one for the.
It's been phenomenal. I mean, like I said the other day, like, I'm afraid something bad's gonna happen because it's gone so well thus far.
Yeah. But like, first day we were surrounded by turkeys.
Mobs,
just in them. And this is your first archery attempt, and so you're trying to figure out the draw timing and distances and whatnot. And so you ended up missing your first two turkeys on the first setup.
Yeah. Hey, I want to clarify this. I whiffed on the first one. The second one, it was that hole. There's a lot of air around him, and I skimmed. Like, I scratched the turkey. I just cut a bunch of feathers off. You could see an inch lower, and I was fine. But yeah, it took a little while to dial it in. And it was just kind of amazing that there was enough opportunities to do that. Also, man, like, that archery is, you're not blowing up the world like you are with the 12 gauge,
Yep. There's room for repeat opportunities, even on the same setup like we saw.
Yeah.
And so I think the biggest thing out of that was you didn't let it take you down. You rebounded pretty quick. You learned, and maybe 2 hours later, you got your first turkey bird. And I don't know. There's something about that. A couple of days later, I whiffed on a turkey at like 10 yards. And
Yeah.
I was beating myself up, and
It's part of the game, dude. Like yeah. And I've felt like the way you were really kind of upset with yourself, and I totally understand that. But man, it's gonna happen. And dude, if it's gonna happen, 10,000 times better for it to happen and like you whiff than you blow a deer's leg off or something, right?
Yeah.
So like I whiffed in ways that those animals were all right, and then like you said, once I got because the first one I was just like physically reacting to that. I mean, that turkey came right up behind us. I see it's just big red head. I've been thinking about turkeys for a year. I did this like fever dream of a drive out here, like just pounding Skittles to stay awake. And then this thing's going like thunderous next to me, and I just like totally whiff. And then I really felt good about the second shot, and I saw those feathers go everywhere, and it was just like I just realized I had to be, I had to be hitting dimes every time, right? And so, yeah, once I got that dialed in, everything else worked out. But dude, you're gonna miss, And now it's starting to be to where like I miss and people see me miss. It used to just be my own private lamentations, but now there's like video footage of me missing, and you certainly didn't not take the opportunity to tell everybody that I missed. So it's gonna get out there.
Hey, yeah, I mean I missed too. It's part of the process. The best thing we can do is practice and be proficient with our weapons, which, in all honesty, I haven't been practicing all that much with my bow. But when they're at 10 yards, it's kind of a chip shot unless you're shaking and you can't control yourself when there's two of them beating the crap out of the decoy.
Which is a really fantastic thing that I told you, man. Like, it's awesome to see that you can still get like that because you have been hunting turkeys for so long on these properties. Like, you know that place really well. Mm-hmm. You kind of know how the turkeys work. You're seeing them from year to year. But man, there's something really special about it. It's kind of like combining like the beauty of people that are really obsessed with birds and hunting birds, which I'm kind of a bird guy in a lot of ways. It's combining that with, I don't know, the thrill and the woodsmanship of like big game hunting, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like a big game bird. It's wild, man. It's such a cool, special thing. And every one of those setups ended up being different, and we just got to experience a lot of turkey behavior.
Yeah, and I even was learning a ton too. Like one of those last setups on the last morning, we set up in a spot where I thought the turkeys are going to come over the rise, and once they're over that rise, they were going to be within shooting distance. But they just didn't. They didn't want to be there. So we learned that it's, well, at least in that location, it would have been better to be in a location where you could see the turkeys coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up doubling on that day later on, but not out of that setup. So we had to correct what we were doing. And another real cool thing was that there was a peacock floating around with a group of jakes and
making wild sounds.
Yeah, just we had no idea what was going on. It sounded like a kazoo was going off, and I thought maybe there was somebody trying to get up there and spook the turkeys off the property or something, but it ended up being a lone peacock just floating around with some jakes. So it was pretty cool to see that too.
It was because those jakes came out, and then that peacock came and it was like taller. It looked like a Dr. Seuss character walking around out there with him. Man, I kind of think that second turkey I got in California was really, really cool. Like I told you after, I was like, dude, this is like got to be one of my top 3 hunts, right? Mm-hmm. But then that last bird, that river turkey, was really cool because we came we got to Oregon on Sunday, kind of lunchtime. A few hours before dark, we went out. Jimmy got this new boat, and we ran the river and just got out, kind of beached it. Jimmy stepped up and called just a little bit, and immediately he got a gobble back. And he just turned and looked at me, and his face was like, this combination of surprise and just joy and anticipation, right? And so we were wearing Sitka gear, and we were toting shotguns. So we ran down, dropped off into this timber. Long story short, this bird worked really well and gobbled for 2 hours, and we just never got a shot at it, right? Like, it just didn't come in all the way. So we backed out of there. We figured he was going to the roost. We backed out of there. We came back with a plan a couple days later, saw the bird strutting at the edge of the river as we were getting there, looped around, went in there, found this big log that was kind of washed out underneath that we could sit down in and mostly cover ourselves up, and 2 very little short call sequences, and then like 45 minutes or an hour or so of waiting, and that bird didn't make a peep until the last 3 minutes, and then he just gobbled his way he was right there, and he gobbled his way all the way in behind us. I could only see him for part of his walk in, and then Jimmy could see him from the other side because of the angles we were at. And, Jimmy had to tell me when. He's like, he's on the decoys. He's like, okay, you can move your head really slowly. And so I move my head slowly. I see him. That bird turns, puts his fan up and turns backwards, and I'm able to pull my shotgun up, and as soon as he comes back around, we get him. And it happened so quick, and it was this bird that we had found and went in there and specifically tried to get that bird, and kind of uneventful for most of it. And then, but I mean, we went in there, and that second time, and maybe an hour and a half after we got there, like, we had that turkey, and it was just the whole narrative of it, like all these different hunts, and then going in this, somewhat unconventional way to get after this turkey that anybody else could have got after, right? That wasn't like a permission deal. That wasn't like having a really awesome private land spot to be on, which we've had this trip. Man, yeah. And I felt too like we had been doing it. We had been doing it so much, or hunting together so much the last week, that we had kind of keyed in. Like, so you kind of know how the other person's going to move, like how to get their attention. And I felt like that last bird was as collaborative a turkey. Like, someone's got to pull, if one person's going to pull the trigger, but I felt like it was totally a collaborative bird. You know what I mean? Like, even into like what we could see. So that's probably my favorite one.
Well, on the last bird, you're the only one who would have had the shot, because my shotgun was sitting like 15 feet away from us at that point. I'd crawled out of the hole that I was in to try to figure out where that Tom had gone, because we hadn't heard him for such a long time. And so I crawled up, and I was trying to glass him up, and he wasn't on the same little corner where he was with his hens. So got up next to Jonathan and pulled out my phone to try to figure out which way he had gone. And the sun started to hit us, and we're getting warm again first thing in the morning. And I was, in my head, I was thinking, this is time that we should probably go pick up those decoys and go try to relocate that turkey.
Yeah, we were going to try and get more aggressive. And we even said, you were like, well, we'll give him, what did you say? I think you said, like, we'll give him 20 more minutes. And you said, no, we'll give him 10 more minutes, and then we'll make a move.
Yep. And so that 10-minute mark was running up, and like seconds away from me standing up, that Tom sounded off behind us, and he was looking for the hen that we were presenting to him. And yeah, I literally called twice. It was one call when I was setting up the decoys right on top of the decoys, and then after about 20 minutes of waiting there, I pulled out a diaphragm call and kind of angled it away from the direction I knew he was in, or thought he was in, and that was it. And we sat there for another 45, 50 minutes, and then it was like, 3 minutes that from the first gobble to when he was in at the decoys. It happened quick.
But man, he was so pretty. He never really got red. His face stayed that's kind of what's burned into my head. He stayed in this blue-white head, but he was gobbling this very soft gobble. And he's just, like I said, he was like the Rudy of turkeys. Beautiful, gorgeous bird, like perhaps the prettiest bird of the whole trip, right? Mm-hmm. But definitely smaller, like compact. But his tail was great. He wasn't beat up. He had just like a moderate beard, but it was like perfect. His spurs were short. I mean, they were definitely spurs. He wasn't a Jake. He was a mature bird. Mm-hmm. But just everything was a smaller proportion. He was like, I don't know, maybe like a 75% bird or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was probably 15, 16 pounds compared to some of the birds we were getting were closer to 20.
I mean, dude felt massive. And some of those California birds had like 1.5 inch spurs on them.
Yeah.
But man, he was just so pretty and so perfect. And he came in, and like the only regret I have is that we don't have that on film because it was so awesome.
The coolest thing for me was being able to put the first turkey on my new boat.
Yeah.
That was cool. Definitely something I'll never forget.
Dude, and then there's like bald eagles flying. We're driving down there. There's bald eagles flying above us, and then we jump this, I don't know, probably like a 6-pack of Canadas, and then they're all honking and flying next to us. And, shit, I stood up on the front of that boat and stuck my arms out,
You're looking like Rose from
Titanic style. That's right, man. But yeah, man, super special trip. It's been really fun. I've been sleeping in this van, which has been real comfy. But we've been relatively comfortable too, Mm-hmm. I was parked outside of your parents' house for a couple of days, and then we spent one night just like pulled off in the national forest driving up. And then I've been parked outside your shop or in your driveway for the last 5 days or so. And man, just been a bomber trip. So here's kind of what I've actually been thinking about. So I think that's fun, but like no one wants to just hear about our turkeys over and over again. And I know that when you guys get on podcasts, it's I bet you guys get asked the same questions just a ton, mm-hmm. right? So I want to do a kind of succinct description of what you guys are doing, what Hunters of Color is, like what's the mission statement, and then a big part of what's been cool about this trip is that we're all friends, and we can, kind of in some ways like maintain these unusual or non-traditional spaces in like the hunting space or the hunting industry. So we've just got like experiences we can share and talk about and compare and contrast. What's also really cool about it is, this is a friendship of people who, it might not be quite generational, like a generation difference, but it's approaching that, right? Mm-hmm. So Jimmy's 26, Lydia's 27, I'm 39. Lydia has made it very clear that I'm essentially petrified at this point. That I come from another generation that doesn't understand the way modern people think, and coupled that with the fact that I live in, Arkansas, I just don't know anything. I don't know anything about wine, which I didn't know anything about wine, but now I've found that I'm a rosé gal. I like the bubbles. I'm not all right saying that. But yeah, we've been having all these like just really intense philosophical discussions, which I so appreciate. And they're like the kind of discussions where, they never get to a point where you're mad at the other person, but I've felt some irritation.
Towards Jimmy, right?
Towards both of us. But, I've tried to pacify it with hot chocolates from Dutch Brothers, the winery, and just remind everybody I'm a good guy. But some of these conversations, and I think especially the one we had yesterday, was so enlightening to me, and it really impressed upon me. Everyone's talking about how it's important to have have friends that don't think the same as you, and you have different perspectives, right? And we're always framing that in terms of race, I think, largely like race, or maybe secondarily to that, maybe that would be class. But this is really important to me that, generational perspectives, right? That's super important. So, yeah. So I want to lead into this saying I've really enjoyed some of these conversations, and what's important about it is to have convos with folks that you really like and respect to start with, so that you don't get caught up in the someone thinks differently than me, so they're a bad person, because you already think they're a good person, right? Keep that crap out of the way, and then you actually can begin to. You already are in a position of empathizing with this person because you like them or you love them or you care about them in some way, right? So then you start looking at why they might think differently than you, and it not be an indictment of their character, right? So anyway, Lydia, you are one of the founders and the executive director of Hunters of Color. So rap to me. Tell me about what you're doing and what Hunters of Color is starting to accomplish and wanting to accomplish more of.
Okay, Sego Guego. Lydia Ancats. My name is Lydia. I'm the executive director, correctly, as Jonathan put. And we founded Hunters of Color early around in 2020, when it was kind of the idea that Jimmy and our friend Thomas, we mentioned earlier, who was out on the turkey tour last year, came together and kind of talked about shared experiences, lived experiences, of feeling either alone when they're out in the hunting woods, or not seeing anyone else who looked like them or could relate to them culturally or otherwise, and kind of wondering what that was. And around the same time, demographic study came out from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that showed that 97% of hunters identified as white. And so again, Jimmy, as you alluded to earlier, you've got to see how his brain works and how he thinks. And he's an engineer by trade. He has a degree in engineering from Oregon State University. And
Go Beavs.
Go Beavs. Yeah. And so Jimmy right away, as an engineer, thought, 97% of hunters identify as white. The U.S. As a total, I think it's 60.4% of the total population identifies as white. So where is that discrepancy? What's happening? What created this disparity? And so right away, as an engineer, he started working to solve a problem, just like any other math problem. And so between he and Thomas and I, we got to work. I had background in nonprofit management. So I took on some of the more, getting our 501c3, getting us up and running, to be an actual employer in the state of Oregon, to become a nonprofit. And Thomas was really integral in getting our website up off the ground, getting some footage and some photos from turkey hunts. And Jimmy's really, this is his brainchild, that Hunters of Color came out of, just because he's an engineer, because he went to work to try to solve a problem. And so in doing that, we came up with HAWK, Hunters of Color, to create equitable spaces and opportunities for people of color to participate in hunting and conservation, with the vision of a hunting community that accurately represents the demographics of the United States, which, as we all know, it's very diverse. We were even talking about that before this podcast. You're talking about friends from all different backgrounds, married into one family, and how beautiful that is, that we live in a country where that's possible, and we all have different experiences, but like we were talking about, even with some of these debates and intergenerational conversations, or cultural or what have you, how important it is to have that diversity of thought. And I think that applies to anything. Conservation is one of the areas where it's also lacking. And so anyways, that's our probably not as succinct as you want. I apologize.
No, I think you did a fantastic job. Gave it a little more flavor than I even anticipated. And
I'll add the caveat that, so although I was the one who initially had the thought, like, I would not have been able to create the organization or get it off the ground alone. It did take Lydia and Thomas coming together to really manifest this into what it's become. My nonprofit background is I volunteered for Ducks Unlimited because growing up I was a big duck hunter. I wanted to give back. A strong ethic of giving back was instilled in me by my mom. And but
Geraldine, what's up?
Yeah. Hey, Mom. And so, but when you volunteer for Ducks Unlimited, at least the way I volunteered was you put on these banquets and you're helping with the fundraising aspect of their organization. And so that was great. I felt like I was doing my part in conserving wetlands, but I had no experience with the actual management portion of a nonprofit. And so that's where Lydia came in, and we originally were like, let's look and see who else is doing this. There's got to be somebody doing it, right? Like we're kind of late to the game too. It's 2019 when we were like really talking about it heavily. I first talked about it in 2016 when I saw the study, but I didn't really it wasn't burning holes in my brain until 2019. Mm-hmm. And so we're like, there's got to be somebody doing something like this, and there wasn't. And so that's when we all decided that something needs to be done. And then so that's months later we had the website going, we had social medias going, and then we had applied for our nonprofit status maybe 3 months after we incorporated as a company in Oregon. So it was quick, and then we gained traction pretty quickly. And last year, also my role with the organization is I'm the programs director. So I run all of our programs, and they fit under 3 umbrellas, which are education, mentoring, and conservation. And so I oversee a lot of that. And this year, or last year, we were able to get 58 new hunters out on a minimal budget with COVID going on. And this year, we aim to either triple or potentially even quadruple that number.
Oh, wow.
And we're just trying to reconnect people to their hunting heritages. If we're all here, if you are alive today, your ancestors hunted at some point. And depending on when your ancestors decided to put away the tradition or were removed from the hunting tradition, we just want to reconnect everybody and be able to have experiences like we just had this last week. Because, even if it weren't for the organization, if I was just a part of this, that would be, I'd carry this the rest of my life, and I will carry this the rest of my life. Just being able to be like, hey, my buddy Jonathan came out from Arkansas, drove 36 hours to make it out to California, and made it there in 5 minutes with 5 minutes to spare. So yeah, that's the motive behind the organization, and kind of in a nutshell. And the way we achieve getting people into ultimately conservation work is through educational opportunities and mentorship opportunities where you're given a head start into the realm of hunting. And we just hope that more people find their way into giving back to the resource that we love, and even if you don't want to hunt, just giving back to natural resources and making sure that there's more wildlife out there. That's what it's all about.
Jonathan, you got a little glimpse at our mentorship program this past year when we came out to Black Duck Revival. Had a great time hunting speck bellies and snows with you, and you got to meet some of our mentees, and so you saw a little bit of that in action.
I did, man. It's a good time. Real good time, actually. And a real special place, man. And, what's your affinity groups? It was like an affinity group. healthy appetites on those boys too. I'll tell you what. I told Jimmy it's the first time all my little Debbies got eaten before the end of the trip. All right, so described our hunt. We've done the elevator pitch of Hunters of Color. We'll talk more in specifics about that, I imagine, in the podcast. But all right, so we're going to keep this civil. But I do want to delve a little bit into I've just been so struck with how I'm at a different place in my life than you guys are. You know, like I've got 2 little kids. You guys have a house. You get very accomplished. But I've just, I've kind of, perhaps I'm lamenting it, but I've calmed down, I feel like in the last decade. I used to be, and I still feel like I'm very passionate about things that are important to me, but there used to be a freneticism to it that I think became, for me personally, I'm going to talk about it. I think it started to limit some of my effectiveness and also like took some joy out of my life. And just didn't let me, I just wasn't allowing myself to really enjoy and appreciate life in the way I wanted to. And I think I have to do that. Like, if I want to be a good dad, I've got to be happy and nice enough to be a good dad and be patient and stuff, right? So anyway, but, I guess you could say like I definitely feel like I came up identifying with counterculture, and I've always been an envelope pusher, I'm sure if you found people that have known me earlier in my life, they would be like, man, this guy was an agitator, right? And so like I like that and I respect that, and I don't think that respectability and getting along is always the righteous path, right? Like that said, I'm more settled than I used to be, right? So you guys are fun to be around because and we'll just be honest, man, specifically with our good friend Lydia here, man, there's that, youthful, want to make huge substantive changes and want to keep momentum going, right? And that's exactly, I think that's exactly as needed. Like, you've got to have that, right? And then I'm trying to speak so carefully about this, and I'm about to stop and just talk like we've been talking. But I found I found some circumstances where I was kind of surprised because I saw that I was being viewed as like stodgy or complacent or something in some way. And so my first instinct was to be like, I am not, you don't understand, right? And then you start getting deeper into each other's experiences and opinions on stuff, and you're not really saying things that are terribly dissimilar, right? But a lot of this is a stylistic difference. And I think that, without getting preachy, I think a lot of people have way more in common with other folks than they realize, and they're getting caught up on stylistic differences. Mm-hmm. And you can't exist in a place where you simultaneously, and I'm talking about America, you're constantly talking about how the stylistic differences in people are a strength to this country, right? Music, art, idea, expression, that you can have a country where you have cowboys and surfers and shopkeepers and Orthodox religious people and people that worship Satan, just like whatever the gamut is, right? And so it was such a good reminder to me of that you don't get caught up in stylistic differences, right? And what is so helpful about it is, like I said, we have this base level of respect and liking each other, so you can keep your hurt feelings out of it a little bit more, right? And kind of, to me, like, talk like a grown up a little bit, because people just inherently become childish when they disagree, and like, so the struggle in it is trying to be a grown up. So all that said, there's going to be a lot of terms that are getting used right now, right? I've heard you say manifest, right? There's been like intersectionality, whatever. Those are terms that I understand are almost triggering to some people, right? It is displaying like an immediate difference in life considerations. And so it's going to make folks want to tune out. They're talking about race. They're talking about all these catchphrases or words that I associate with folks that I vehemently disagree with. But I think that, most people would say that love hunting, that have found benefit to this way of life, would say that they want other people to experience that too. And that what they want most would be that for it to continue, right? And not to stop with a generation or two past even me, Lydia, that, we are losing hunters. As a community, the percentage of people in America that identify as hunters, who identify as outdoors people, right? That have these, I'm going to say, woodsmanship skills, and I understand that there's probably a more inclusive way of saying that, but I can't think of one right now. Those generations they're kind of like there's a stagnation there, and there's not a recruitment of an equal number of people that are leaving, right? So that means if you love this thing and you want it to continue, out of necessity, out of nothing but necessity, if you want to boil it down to that, take morals, take ethics, take the way you should think, just if you want it to continue, there's going to have to be recruitment of people. They're coming from different populations. Because those populations have already been exposed to it, and they're choosing not to. So you got to broaden the net, right? So that means people are going to speak differently than you. They're going to perhaps dress differently. They're going to look differently. They're going to see the world differently. And you're going to find places where you agree with them, and you're going to find places where you don't. And so I'm not trying to put we all got to get along, because I don't think that. Like, there are people I think they are so wrong that I do think their character has come into things. And I'm not just talking about politically. I'm talking about just however they live their life, right? I'm not going to, somebody who's routinely going out and killing 50 elk a year with some illegal firearm and leaving them lay. I mean, I'm not aware of this happening, but that person, I'm not going to say, well, we disagree on the way that we hunt, but we're both hunters, right? Like, I feel like I'm engaged in something different than that person. But I'd be interested to hear, and I'm kind of thinking specifically start off with Lydia, but where are you seeing places where there seems like where are you hitting walls? And do you think some of it is from these broader interpretations, that people they immediately are pigeonholing you, or what you're trying to do, or your intentions, or how you see the world, and being resistant to working together, or I guess working together. Yeah,
and before I touch on a couple of those barriers, as I would call them, I think what you were alluding to moments ago is really important in the conversations that we've had where we've disagreed. Oftentimes it comes down to semantics, right? Oftentimes it comes down to how I'm saying something, and then we end up, talking about that same topic for 10 minutes and realizing that we're kind of saying the same thing. We're actually on the same side. It's just how I said something or how I came to that conclusion might not be the same as you. And I think that room for nuance is so important in any conversation, in any relationship, in our proximity to one another. And I think that that's what's that's what's missing when we have those, the trigger reactions to each other, to things that are said, to when we perceive a difference in someone, and that comes from all different sides, all different walks of life and all different angles, to immediately and accidentally, that implicit bias, right? That subconscious reaction to some things and assuming things about people, that takes away our ability to have nuance and to have proximity with someone, or to even build a relationship with someone, to be able to care about why they care about things, how their worldview is so different than yours, perhaps, and then what's important to them. And so I've really appreciated these conversations too. I think Jimmy's appreciated that I'm not bugging him about, if there is a Tao, a moral right and wrong that exists in the universe. Jonathan's here for a couple days and I can bug him about it instead.
This has really been Jimmy getting me here to be a heat sink.
But anyways, I think that that's all really important. And it also alludes to, here's a fun one for you. I do an anti-racism training. And that even is a word in and of itself that people either are like, well, what is that? Or,
Are you teaching people, or are you taking instruction?
We've developed it with the board to teach people.
Okay.
Just as a basis of why we do what we do, and how important it is to be able to relate to one another in a respectful way, for the sake of the natural resources, like Jimmy mentioned, for the sake of these traditions, like you mentioned, and how that might require us setting aside differences by understanding each other, by knowing those differences, and recognizing how we can actually relate to each other. So two of the things that we start out with, the first agreement in this training is we agree that every human being that we meet is worthy of dignity and respect simply because they're a human being. And there's no caveats to that. There's no only if you see eye to eye with that person, only if you agree with that person, because that's not the case. You can disagree with someone and that person's still worthy of respect. You can disagree with their actions, who they love, who they vote for, whatever. And that person is still a human being worthy of respect. And so that's the first agreement. If we can't agree on that, then I'm not sure we can move forward with the rest of the conversation. And then the next agreement is that we recognize that we all have common ground when we're in the outdoors. We all have common ground when we're talking about things like hunting and conservation. And if we have those two things as a basis, then any other conversation should fall secondary, right, to that need and that understanding that, as less and less people hunt, and as our nation becomes more and more diverse, it's not politics we're talking about. It's not whatever words get thrown around. It's not wokeness. It's actual intentionality to making sure that these traditions that we love, that these spaces that we love, that these animals that we love have the people in the next generation who love them and care about them and want these things to continue. And so it's just really the practicality of what we're doing. Jimmy's actually crunched some numbers to see how many people we need to bring into the hunting world before a certain time, or else we'll lose the whatever $1.6 billion a year that comes from hunting and shooting sports. And I'll let him get to that in a second. But I think that that's one of the biggest issues that we run into, is that trigger reaction to people even reading our name, and we get pigeonholed. People read Hunters of Color, and we've had people say, "Oh, is this a political organization?"
It's too
too direct.
No. It's two divisive things at once.
Yeah, hunting.
You're referencing race and you're referencing hunting. Yeah.
Exactly, and so this is where, whenever we apply for funding, there are some social equity organizations and foundations that when we say hunters, they immediately write us off.
Yeah.
Then on the other side of things, there's some hunting organizations that when we say of color, they immediately write us off. And it's really frustrating because I think that we're expecting people to bring a level of nuance to the conversation that we've developed over time, over the past 3 or 4 years of us talking about all of these things and realizing, even our founders, we have a vast array of lived experiences, socioeconomic class, genders and political backgrounds, all of the above. But we come together on these commonalities, and even our name, though, is a barrier in some ways to both sides of the spectrum there. So I think that that's one of the biggest issues when you say, finding ways to relate to people, is that I think if people take the time to talk with us, they'll recognize, and just like with most people, you take the time to get to know each other. I always say in proximity is where you see the least disparity, right? Because when you're with other humans and spending time with other humans and getting to care about other humans, that's when you realize that they're humans. They're just like us. There's so much more in common than we understand from the outside. But anyways, I think that's one of the biggest issues, that if people take the time, instead of those, the triggers that set folks off, or have you turn off the dial the second I say of color or hunters, that's what's missing from the nuance and from the conversations that's gonna be able to keep our traditions alive, and to continue on.
You know what I didn't even think about this, but it might be helpful to some folks, because it was something that was helpful to me when I made the realization. I think it's really valuable that I find a lot of value in the fact that it's like multicultural in a way. I feel like multicultural from where I've been in my life. Like I've been in Missouri and Arkansas. Like what they're talking about black and white, right? Like, and I'm not talking about a binary. I'm talking about black people and white people, right? But because you guys are PNWers, right? West Coast, your exposure to different ethnic groups and races of people is like much more broad than it is in a lot of places in the country, right? So, neither one of you are black, right? And I think that's really important because it is demonstrable of the depth of human experience that we're actually referencing in this country, right? And it brings different considerations. So if you've heard who did I do a podcast with? I think with Natalie Krebs, and I was talking about when I was hanging out with some friends and I was showing them this movie, Heavyweights, that I love so much, right? And had all these fond memories of as a child. And then we get towards like the last 12 minutes of the video, and never even occurred to me that there's 30 people running around with like headdresses on in these buckskin outfits at a summer camp, and Lydia is very proudly indigenous, right? Perhaps even woke indigenous, right? And so then I've brought this thing into her house that is, I was humiliated. I felt like ashamed. I felt so unaware, right? Which was such a positive experience for me ultimately, because Lydia was, had a lot of grace and didn't tell me I was a terrible person because I made that mistake, right? And we stopped watching it. And it changed considerations I make, even to a point to where I've been signing up for these little half marathon things or whatever. And there was one that I decided not to because the representation of it is like a big headdress situation, right? And I know that I assume it's, I don't think anyone was really trying to be derisive of Native Americans with it, but they're not being considerate. And I just thought, I was like, man, I can't go do that and like get that T-shirt and then like wear it around Lydia. I was like, so maybe I just don't need to do it. I just go run someplace else. Mm-hmm. And it was, I don't think that's a life-changing perspective to take on anything, but it is a demonstration of how meeting somebody and caring about somebody who has a different worldview than you is impacting just kind of daily stuff, right? kind of some of maybe the smaller decisions, the not big look at me decisions. But then I got on a podcast and told everybody about it. So I guess there's some hypocrisy there. But
I think that one of the reasons that, first of all, I think that showing grace in instances of ignorance is the only way forward. When you yell at people, you don't change very many minds. But I think that having nuanced conversation around things like that are really important. And I think that also one of the things that I remember you saying, I think before we watched that movie with the headdress scene, was that I was the first person in your life who brought the concept of indigeneity to modernity, to, today, real life in 2021 or 2022, whatever it was.
I was aware, but not, but just like peripherally.
Right. And so that's what I mean about the importance of relationship, right? The importance of being in proximity to one another. I always also say you can't care about something you don't know about. And that seems like the most, simplistic, menial way to say it, but it's true. And if you and I hadn't met, or if I wasn't Indigenous, then you might not have even thought about that, watching that movie. And so I think that proximity is really important. And I think it also then allows you to have those conversations. Well, why haven't I met very many Indigenous folks? What is it? And then looking at the history of Arkansas, looking at the history of that part of the world, where the Trail of Tears, the famous Trail of Tears was enacted and pushed through to Oklahoma. And so a lot of the history of the tribes in your area, the Quapaw and the Caddo and a couple other tribes in that area.
Yeah, they kind of all overlap. Like the Cherokee were down there, the Chickasaw.
But very much so have been removed. And so that's part of what I talk about too.
Osage.
Part of what I talk about too is that we're still here. Indigenous folks, we're still here. We're not some, mystical figment of imagination, the stoic, brave Indian. We're very much still here, and we come from a very proud history and lineage, and a lot of hurt too, and a lot of heartache. And so in your region of the world, it makes sense that you wouldn't come in contact with too many Indigenous folks because of that mass forced removal to
like people
Oklahoma.
were rounded up.
Yes.
And then death marched
upwards of 3,000 miles, men, women, and children, bare feet, and
no food in the winter.
Yeah.
It was, really, 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 really bad.
Yeah.
I don't have a sophisticated segue for this.
It's part of why hunting is really important to me. Do that.
This
can be a segue.
That helps me out. We'll let you talk too, Jimmy. Go ahead, Lydia.
But my indigeneity is part of why hunting is really important to me. And I've shared many times, I didn't grow up hunting. I grew up fishing. I can teach you a thing or two about bass fishing out here on the Willamette River, Jonathan. But I didn't grow up hunting. My dad's Indigenous and my mom is white. And my dad actually grew up in a city away from the reservation where 71% of Indigenous people do live in urban centers now. And he had that disconnect from his culture where he didn't grow up hunting. And so it was actually my mom's side of the family that hunted actually for subsistence. There were 14 kids, this big Irish Catholic family, 14 kids, and eating elk and fishing was the way to stay alive out here in Oregon. But it's this reconnection that my dad had to go through in order to bring my sister and I into our culture and to understand how important it is to us to be Mohawk and to be proud Ganyangaaka or Haudenosaunee. And I think that the more time I spend around folks in my tribe, the more passion I have. You mentioned my passion earlier, I think is a nice way to say it. But the more drive that I have to do this work, because I was in a group with some members from my tribe a couple months ago. We were working with a tribal historian, and he was pulling out flint-napped arrowheads from 5,000 years ago. That just, amazing to look at, right? And to see, this tradition of hunting it isn't new by any means. Like Jimmy said, it's in all of our ancestry, but to see that and to see, to be able to, I was able to go on a whitetail hunt with Hunters of Color. We hosted an event in New York on Mohawk land, and to be there, to be hunting was just, incredible, because my family's been hunting there since the beginning of time, is how we'd say it, since Sky Woman fell. But that part of my identity is what helps drive this need for connection to culture, for connection to ceremony. You actually, Jonathan and Jimmy, were able to participate in helping some friends who are Coast Miwok continue ceremonies by giving some of the turkey feathers. And I don't know if you skinned them, gave the whole pelt to them, but that's really important to me too. And that sense of identity that comes with connection to the land and to the animals that are so important to our histories and our creation stories. And the last thing that I'll say about that is I was in another training for Indigenous executive directors, Indigenous nonprofit leaders recently through the 7th Generation Fund, which I was very grateful for. And one of the executive directors towards the end of the program was talking about something that you mentioned yesterday, how we need to take care of ourselves the way that we would care for a loved one. And that's a hard concept for a lot of us. People who spend their time working with others, or people who are just, empathetic in general. It's kind of a hard concept to think about. I'm going to take care of myself so that I can take care of other people. And it's one of the hardest things that Jimmy has to try to get me to work on, to take care of myself, to put the computer down after 12 hours of work, to get outside, to go shoot my bow, But she also said that if we don't do this work, who suffers? And in this Indigenous circle, this community, it's I think that she did work for it was like a food security program. So she was feeding folks that didn't have enough to eat. And so in her community, she's like, oh, that's people in my tribe who don't have enough to eat. And so I think that that's something that drives that passion you mentioned earlier, that makes me want to work hard, that makes me want to do this work, is if we don't do this, who's doing it? We've launched into, I think we're in 11 states now in the country, and the only nationwide BIPOC-led, BIPOC-serving mentorship program doing this R3 work that's so vital, like we've talked about. And if we don't do it, who does? And so anyways, a little bit of why I'm passionate about it. And I don't think you were saying it in a derogatory way, but that's part of what drives it.
Oh, no, I would never, Lydia. No, so just real quick to add to that, the idea of taking care of yourself. There's a dude I know, family man now, but back in the day we called him Dirty Sean. And he used to say, treat yourself, don't cheat yourself, And he's living a great life, got good friends, nice family, good job, But yeah, that mindset of suffering and grinding till you got nothing left to give to the people that deserve the best parts of you isn't a good idea. I'd also say this because, you switched into an indigenous language for a moment there. You threw around the term BIPOC, right? Which there's probably people listening to this that don't even know what that is. And so that would be like Black, Indigenous people of color. It's a very modern term. I want to juxtapose some of those stylistic differences and say that really, to me, this is so indicative of like an American story, right? Like this is some real bootstrap shit. So you see something that you care about, that you're passionate about, that you want to be different, that you want to change, right? And so you could change the tenor of this, right? You could change the accent on it, right? And to me, it's very much like, well, don't sit around and bitch about stuff. Get up and do something, right? And that's literally what you're doing. To me, it's just like a super American thing to do. This idea of, with all the many flaws of this country and the lack of execution of things, right? But this idea that you can make things better, that with want to and effort, you can impact whatever sort of change it is you want, right? Which is something that's like super important to me and really resonant in my life. And yeah, man, I think it's worth emphasizing that that's super American, and that there's different ways to be one, and that's worth protecting too, right? Yeah, Jimmy, you've gotten on a podcast with two of the more loquacious people on planet Earth. So, do you have anything you'd like to say?
What did I tell you and Thomas that Jonathan literally just said almost word for word?
Yeah, Lydia was like, stop freaking talking about it and do something about it. And so Lydia was the one who actually bought the Hunters of Color URL, or like the website, the domain name. And that's what sparked it. That was the catalyst to creating the organization. And it was Thomas and I would have just sat there flicking our thumbs around, just trying to figure out
basically the story of anybody who's ever had a good woman behind them, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Get off your ass and do something about it.
I think that might have been word for word, actually.
I bet you it was.
Yeah. But I mean, the first time we ever heard you speak, Lydia and I were hanging out in the sun, and it was a podcast with you and Clay Newcomb.
No. Paint the picture, because I really want them to understand how millennial and West Coast you guys are.
Okay. So we're according to Jonathan, we're elite West Coasters.
No, these folks had never heard the term coastal elite.
I was hoping this wouldn't come up because now it's stuck in my head again.
The coastal elite, they just had never heard of it.
So we're being super elite in our $30 Walmart pop-up swimming pool.
Yeah, we're munching on some frozen.
Have you looked around here? We're looking at a rhododendron farm when you come outside.
Yeah.
It's a great place to park a van.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful. Peeing next to the garage in the mornings, and it's just a gorgeous P&W view. But go ahead. Yeah. So you guys are what, 24 years old, chilling in a Walmart pool?
Yeah.
Having a glass of wine or something?
Maybe. Or an Otter Pop. There's something frozen because it was
an Otter Pop.
It was really hot out. And you and Clay got to talking about how hunters do hard things. We have, like, if you would have just given up after that first turkey you shot at, just like, this is too much, I'm done, I'm driving back to Arkansas. you wouldn't.
I'd kick my own ass.
We wouldn't have had the experiences, and we wouldn't. I mean, we have a freezer full of turkey meat right now, and we're going home with loaded coolers. So we wouldn't have gotten past that first miss. And we just do hard things. We have hard conversations, and we learn from. At least we try to learn out of every outcome. For instance, to tie it back to this week. I mean, I've been hunting turkeys since I was 12 years old or something like that. And I was still learning on this trip, learning different setups, like what went right and what went wrong. There was a time when Jonathan had a turkey at like 12 yards, but he wouldn't commit any further just because he didn't want to go downhill. He was up above. He could see the decoy.
And I had to whip around a bush and then get up in it. For 30 minutes, I needed the 2 more yards for him to come to the right 2 more yards. And because I didn't, he might have well has been, he could have been 100 yards away. He was just as far.
Yeah. And it's hard to keep your composure during things like that too. Like, your heart was probably pumping out of your chest. I know mine was where I was at.
Yeah, and you're like physically uncomfortable. You're like wrenching yourself. Like we were even talking about, like, why are our obliques hurt? Yeah. It's strained so hard not moving.
Yeah.
But so, like, we're already doing hard stuff, so it's a great transferable skill, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think to bring it back to, like, the barriers is, most people will say, like, they'll be like, why do you gotta make it about race? It's just hunting's hunting. Like, you don't have to bring that into the conversation. Well, you don't, but everybody has lived experiences that are different. And if we have more people who are different than us in the fold, actively working on bettering the community and the resources, we're going to be better for it.
Like across the board.
Across the board, yeah. There's going to be, for instance, up here, like, if we had more, it's called traditional ecological knowledge, which is just using indigenous science to better the forests around here, we'd be using a lot more fire to control the fires that we have this last few years, where we have like these just massive wildfires that just take over and destroy everything in their wake. If we were using the best available knowledge, we'd be doing prescribed burns. We'd be using all the tools on the table, but there are voices and
there's perspectives that don't get the attention.
Yep, exactly. And so if we love the resource and we want hunting to persist, the best way to do that is to pass on the passion. So if you have a child, a grandchild, anybody in your immediate circle to pass that on to, that's how you're going to continue the legacy. But there is a statistic that shows that 73% of white people have all white circles. So if you're a white hunter, if you fit in that 73% of people, the chances of you passing on your hunting traditions and your knowledge and your expertise to somebody who looks differently than you, who comes from a different background, is super minimal. The chances are nil. So what we are trying to do with our mentorship program, what we have done, is we are reconnecting people to that tradition so that one day they can pass it on to their circle of influence, their descendants. There'll be a hunting ancestor that passed it on.
You're also building like actually building bridges between different people, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That I don't know what the term is. Grow. I like the word metastasize, but that's so specific to like cancer. But blossom perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, you're bringing a bunch of different folks together, which it's not just feel good, right? It actually is strengthening these institutions,
mm-hmm.
right? And not just strengthening them, it's lowering the temperature. It's lowering the social and emotional temperature, which is real important. Because you can't just say like you've got to talk to people that are different than you if everyone's at a fever pitch,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Hanging out with somebody and like liking them and both being excited because a turkey came in, like that'll bring the temperature way down,
mm-hmm.
right? And then you can just absorb someone's different life through osmosis,
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Yeah, what do you seem like you have something you want to throw into that?
Oh, I was just going to say that what Jimmy just touched on is really important, because if you listen to most hunting podcasts or watch most hunting shows, people will often reference their grandpa or grandma or dad, or uncle who got them into hunting. And there's often a kind of a paternalistic line. It's passed down from grandpa to dad and dad to son, and
sure.
And it's passed down generation to generation. And that's beautiful, and I love that, and that's so great. And if that doesn't exist because someone's grandpa doesn't hunt or grandma doesn't hunt, then that's never going to happen. That's never going to be self-fulfilling, right? And so what Jimmy's talking about and what our mentorship program goal is we say to create surrogate families that do hunt. And so where someone might not have that paternal line or familial line to hunting, let's say, we can then bring in a grandpa sort of figure, somebody who's been around, who's been in the hunting game forever, for a long time, and they can share that knowledge with a younger, or even sometimes it's a peer, with someone who just doesn't, a young hunter. They don't have the hunting experience. And so that's been one of the most beautiful things I think about the mentorship program, is watching some of these folks, like I mentioned, the New York whitetail hunt that we did, watching our mentees and mentors. Still, it's been almost a year since that hunt, and just this last week they're sending us pictures deep sea fishing with their mentors. Last week, and they've gone out ice fishing, and they went on a rabbit hunt together in the snow. No one knows why they went out. It was like -10 degrees.
They're like buddies now.
Yes,
yeah.
We've created a family, and that's the proof of concept right there. That's the goal, and who knows if they all would have gotten along otherwise. But what you're saying, Jonathan, is bringing everyone together, having that common ground in the outdoors and the pursuit of hunting and wild game. I think that levels the playing field and makes us realize how much we do have in common, and how much joy there is to be had in watching a new person experience, or a new hunter experience, hunting for the first time or fishing for the first time. Jimmy often says he has more fun teaching than actually hunting at this point.
Well,
maybe not after this week.
Yeah. Sometimes I gotta get some time for myself too. But
yeah. Otherwise, how would he be? Remind everybody what Jimmy called himself this week.
Jimmy may or may not have called himself the Turkey King on the one day that you guys didn't get something, right?
I jinxed it, but. But I mean, I felt indestructible at
that point. We sat down. It was after. So Jonathan, that was actually one of my favorite parts of this entire week, was that first gobble on public land, when Jimmy kind of almost jokingly, almost nonchalant, just, hey, let me call and see what happens, and then instantaneous, he calls, and then you hear the gobble like seconds later. That was that day. And so it really probably did feel like, wow, there's something to this.
Yeah, what is going on, man? No, dude, it was so much better. Like, that's the one we had to go back for, you know what I mean? Dude, so cool, so special. Yeah, well, hey, I really appreciate you guys exist. I appreciate the broadening of my perspectives, and man, this we'll end it here, man. This wine. I mean, so it's probably not a secret that last night I got into the wine. Like, had to go to bed in my van at like 8:45 because, dude, we had a blush, we had a little sparkling one. It was your mother's birthday. We made dirty rice and some turkey cutlets, and she had a nice dessert wine. Mm-hmm. There was a little Pinot. Wasn't there a Pinot involvement? Well,
yeah, we're here in the Willamette Valley, and so that's kind of what we do.
But it was a Pinot Gris to go with the dirty rice.
Yeah.
We've just got elite Pinots out here, Jonathan.
I'll tell you what else is great about this, is that Lydia is worse than I am about covering up how she feels, and she is so bothered by this coastal elite. I mean, it will haunt her. I will hear about it again. I might make her a T-shirt. Turkey King and the Coastal Elite.
I'll wear that.
You wear that around?
Maybe without the Coastal Elite part, but
the PNW Turkey King.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, man. Seriously, thank you guys. This is like the second year I've been out here. This, like, y'all's house has seriously become one of my favorite places in the world. Such a great time. Yeah, man. These turkeys don't hurt. Man. And yeah, we're going to do a longer Jimmy and I have talked about we're going to do a longer turkey tour next year. You know, some people don't like it. Can't make everybody happy, right, Jimmy?
You can't, but you can try.
Yeah, you can't, man. I'm telling you. Just from one generation to the next.
Stoic sage wisdom from Jonathan.
Yeah, all the people I know in Oregon are like way younger than me. Like the dude I'm gonna go see over in East Oregon, when I met him, he told me, like, at the end of the week, and he was like, "It's so nice to have an older man to talk to." I was like, "What?" Yeah, I guess so.
Is he our age then?
Yeah, he's like your age. Yeah. Owns a ranch. I was like, cool. Dude, I don't know anything, man. Like, teach me.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, where you're going, they're out there thick too. So,
yeah, I'm gonna try and take everything I learned, go do it by myself in a couple days, and then off to Montana. We'll see each other next week at BHA Rendezvous.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're hearing this, you come out to Rendezvous, come say hi. We'll all be out there. And how do folks get a hold of you? Instagram, website?
You can find us on at huntersofcolor.org. That's where you'll find the most information about the organization. There's contact info for all of our team members. There you'll find our ambassadors for each state, and then ways to donate to help the cause. You can volunteer. You can sign up to be a mentor. You can sign up to be a mentee. And then our social media. That's kind of where we do a lot of like our news updates. Or you can also sign up for our monthly newsletter, which just gives updates on what the programs are doing and
social media is at Hunters of Color.
Yes. But yeah, any way you can support, whether that's being a follower, a mentor, volunteer, or financially supporting the mission. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, so every donation is tax deductible, and we rely heavily on the support of people who believe in the mission and care about hunting and passing it on to the next generation.
Awesome. Well, again, guys, thanks so much. Folks, thanks for listening. Until next time. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Black Duck Revival podcast. As always, it's produced by me, Jonathan Wilkins, and Brian Sachs. If you're hearing this outro to the podcast, then that means I am still on the road. I'm still on Turkey Tour 2022. It's been phenomenal so far, and I'm excited to see how it all winds up. If you'd like to follow along, please do so over at Instagram. The handle is just Black Duck Revival. And if you'd like more information about me, what I'm doing, possibly book a hunt or a fishing trip, just head on over to the website at blackduckrevival.com. Questions, comments, all that stuff you can send to me through the link at the website. And if you guys are enjoying this podcast, like I ask you pretty much every week, please tell somebody, share it with your friends on social media. Any sort of promotion we can get helps out tremendously. And I'm so pumped up and enthusiastic these last few weeks while I've been out on the West Coast. I've been looking at the numbers, and we are getting a significant increase in listeners. So thank you so much for everything you guys have been doing. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.